Hello all, welcome to Forest Biology. So today in this video we are going to study the biological classification chapter, which is the second chapter in class 11th NCERT. So without wasting our time, let's go through all the highlighted points. So the first one is in Linnaeus time there was a two kingdom classification, which was basically Plantae and Animalia, and this does not distinguish between anything, just only the plants and animals. There were only two categories. So this table is very much important, so all of these should be highlighted. So if you see the cell type, in Monera it is prokaryotic, rest all it is eukaryotic. Cell wall, this is non-cellulosic, it may be a polysaccharide and the amino acid. Here in Protista the cell wall is present in some, but in fungi this is very important, the cell wall is chitin, and Plantae it is cellulose, and Animalia there is no cell wall. Nuclear membrane is absent in Monera, present in Restore. Body organization is cellular, cellular, multicellular, tissue or organ system. So when you go from Monera to Animalia, the body organization will get complex. Next, autotrophic. The mode of nutrition for Monera it is autotrophic. Here also autotrophic. Here heterotrophic. Plants is autotrophic, that is photosynthetic, and animals is heterotrophic. You can just go through this, which is important. The most important is the cell wall of fungi is made up of chitin. Next, next, R.H. Whittaker proposed the five kingdom classification, which includes Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. So there are few main criteria. This is very much important. It is a most probable question for Neet as well. So what are the main criteria is cell structure, body organization, mode of nutrition, reproduction, and phylogenetic relationships. So there are five main criteria for the five kingdom classification. And the three domain system has also been proposed, that divides the kingdom Monera into two domains, leaving the remaining eukaryotic kingdoms in the third domain, and thereby there are six kingdom classification also, where only the Monera is divided into two kingdom, rest all are the same. So this is all about the classification. So all prokaryotic organisms were grouped together under kingdom Monera, and the unicellular eukaryotic organisms were placed in kingdom Protista. And kingdom Protista also includes Chlorella, Chlamydomonas, and with the Paramecium and amoeba. So this is the classification. Later we'll go through each kingdom. So first one is kingdom Monera. So here the bacteria are the sole members of kingdom Monera. They can live in extreme habitats and also in deserts, snow, all those places. So bacteria is categorized into four categories, that is spherical coccus, rod shape is bacillus, comma is vibrio, and spiral is spirillum. You can just see the shapes here and you can match them. Next, some of the bacteria are autotrophic, that is they synthesize their own food from the inorganic substrates. They may be photosynthetic autotrophic or chemosynthetic autotrophic. The vast majority of the bacteria are heterotrophic. Only few are autotrophic, rest few all are heterotrophic, that is they depend on other organisms or dead organic matter for the food. Next, in bacteria we have archaebacteria and eubacteria. So archaebacteria, they live in harsh habitats. This is the most probable question, and I think in PYQ also they have asked this archaebacteria regarding methanogens, biogas, and this also. Extreme salty areas is halophiles. Hot springs is thermoacidophiles. Hot means thermo. And marshy areas is marshy areas, methanogens. So methanogens are present in the gut of several ruminant animals such as cow and buffaloes, and they are responsible for the production of methane from the dung of these animals. So this is also important. Next, eubacteria. There are thousands of different bacteria, different eubacteria. This is also called as true bacteria. Eu in the sense true. So the example for this is cyanobacteria, which has chlorophyll A, which is similar to the green plants, and photosynthetic autotrophs. So these are photosynthetic autotrophs. Cyanobacteria may be either unicellular, colonial, filamentous, or freshwater marine, all those. And the colonies are generally surrounded by a gelatinous sheath. Some of these organisms can fix the atmospheric nitrogen in a specialized cells called heterocytes. So this is a PYQ and also most probable question. So example of that is nostoc and anemia. So if you see this diagram is also important, they'll ask you to label the diagram. So this is the heterocyte. So This is about photosynthetic autotrophs. Next, chemosynthetic, they oxidize various inorganic substances such as nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia, and use the released energy for their ATP production. So this is about chemosynthetic. Heterotrophic is mainly water decomposes, and they also help in making curd from milk, production of antibiotics, fixing nitrogen in legume roots, all these. And the diseases caused by bacteria includes chlorella, typhoid, tetanus, citrus canker. So, and bacteria reproduce mainly by fission, which is shown here, and they can also reproduce by sexual reproduction by adopting a primitive type of DNA transfer from one bacterium to another bacterium. That is not so important, but they mainly reproduce by fission. This is the most important part, because based on this there are so many PYQs available also. So the mycoplasma are the organism that doesn't have a cell wall, completely lack, and the smallest living cells known which can survive without oxygen. So there are 3 points: it doesn't have cell wall, it can survive without oxygen, and it is the smallest living cell. So this is important in kingdom Monera. Next, kingdom Protista. All single-celled eukaryotes are placed under this protista, but the boundaries of these kingdoms are not well defined. Now, there are few types in that. First one is chrysophytes. So this portion is also important. This group includes diatoms and golden algae, which is also called as desmids. In diatoms, the cell wall form a two thin overlapping shells which fit together as in the form of a soap box. The walls are embedded with silica, so they are indestructible. So silica is the walls are made up of silica. This accumulation over billions of years is known as diatomaceous earth, because diatoms are the group involved. Being gritty, this soil is used in polishing, filtration of oils and syrups. And this is the most important, which is a PYQ, that is, diatoms are the chief producers in the oceans. So this is important. Next, dinoflagellates. The cell wall has a stiff cellulose plate on the outer surface, and there are two flagella here. One lies longitudinally and the others lie transverse. And there are red dinoflagellates, and this one is also PYQ, which is called gonial lux, and they make the sea color red, and that is due to the release of toxin which may kill other animals also. Then euglenoids also has two flagella, one short and one long. Here one longitudinal and one transverse. So euglenoids had a protein-rich layer called pellicil instead of the cell wall, and they are photosynthetic in the presence of light, and when they are deprived of light, they behave as a heterotrophs. So the this is also important. The pigment of the euglenoids are identical to those present in the higher plants. That is the example of euglena. So they may ask a MCQ based on this. Slime molds. Slime molds are basically a saprophytic protist. They are suitable in the suitable conditions. They form an aggregation called plasmodium. During unfavorable condition, this plasmodium differentiates and forms fruiting bodies bearing spores at their tips. So this is about slime molds. Next, protozoan. Also there are four types. So first we'll see what are protozoans. So these are heterotrophs, and they live as a predator or parasite. They are believed to be primitive relatives of animals. So this is also important. So here euglena and protozoan you have to go through. Amoeboid protozoans. So they move and capture their prey by putting out the pseudopodia as in amoeba. They marine form has silica shells on their surface, some of them such as entamoeba parasites. Then flagellated protozoans, in the sense they have flagella. This parasitic forms causes diseases such as sleeping sickness, that is trypanosoma. Then ciliated protozoans. They are actively moving organisms because of the presence of thousand cilia. They have a cavity that opens to the outside of the cell surface. Example of this is paramecium. Then sporozoans, the most notorious is the plasmodium, malarial parasite which causes malaria, uh, which is caused in the human population. So this is about protista. Next, kingdom fungi. So this kingdom is very much important. This is a unique kingdom of heterotrophs. There are different fungi cause diseases such as wheat rust, which causes Puccinia, So you can just remember this. And some are the sources of antibiotics such as penicillin, and they prefer to grow in warm and humid places. So this is also important. I have asked it PYQ. Next, with the exception of yeast, which are unicellular, fungi are filamentous. Their body consists of long, slender, thread-like structures called hyphae, and this, when many hyphae comes together, it forms a network which is called mycelium. So this some hyphae are continuous tubes filled with multinucleated cytoplasm, and these are called as coencytic hyphae. Others have septae or cross walls. So this is continuous. Others are septae or cross walls. The cell wall of fungi is composed of chitin, which already I told. Then most of the fungi are heterotrophic, and they are saprophytes. And those that depends on the living plants and animals are called parasites. They can also live as a symbionts in association with algae as lichens, and with roots of higher plants as mycorrhiza. So if it is in association with algae, it is called lichens. If it is association with roots, it's called mycorrhiza. Reproduction in fungi can take place by different means. Asexual reproduction is by spores called conidia, or sporangiospores or zoospores, and sexual reproduction is by oospores, ascospores, and basidiospores, which we will learn later. And the spores are producing distinct structures called fruiting bodies. So the sexual cycle involves three main steps. This is very important. The sequence of the steps is very important. First one is plasmogamy, then karyogamy, then the meiosis in the zygote. So fusion of protoplasms. So protoplasm fusion is called plasmogamy. So PP. Two nuclei fusion is called karyogamy. Then it undergoes meiosis in zygote, resulting in haploid growth. So this is also important point. When a fungus reproduces sexually, two haploid hyphae of compatible mating types come together and fuse. In some fungi, the fusion of two haploid cells immediately results in diploid cells in few. However, in other fungi such as ascomycetes and basidiomycetes, an intervening dikaryotic stage occurs. Such a condition is called dikaryon, and this phase is called dikaryophase. Later, the parental nuclei fuse and the cells becomes diploid. So this is about. Now we'll go through each fungi type. So first one is phycomycetes. So you have to know what is the mycelium. So mycelium is aseptate and coniocytic, and the asexual reproduction takes place by zoospores or by aplanospores, and the zygospore is formed by the fusion of two gametes. Some common example is mucor, rhizopus, and albugo. You can remember this: rhizopus, albugo, mucor, and phycomycetes, ramp. So this is ramp. Then ascomycetes is canna. It is also known as sac fungi, and they are multicellular. Example is penicillium, which is multicellular, and for unicellular example is yeast. So the mycelium is branched and septate. Here that it is aseptate. So here it is septate and branched. The asexual spores are conidia, produced exogenously on the special mycelium called conidiophores. Then the sexual spores are called ascospores, and produced in the sac-like asci, or singular is ascus, and the fruiting body is called ascocarps, and example is aspergillus, claviceps, and neurospora. So you can remember this: claviceps, aspergillus, neurospora, ascomycetes. So canna. And neurospora is medicinally important because it has biochemical and genetic work. It is used in that, and the morels and truffles are edible and they're used as delicacies. Next comes to basidiomycetes. So this is commonly known as common forms are mushrooms, bracket fungi, or puffballs, and the examples for the parasites are rust and smut. Here the mycelium is branched in septate again, and vegetative form reproduction is of by fragmentation is more common, and their asexual spores are not generally found, but plasmogamy is brought about by the fusion of two vegetative or somatic cells of different stage or genotypes. So the resultant structure is dikaryotic, which ultimately give rise to basidium. Here it forms basidium. So here also same thing, karyogamy and meiosis takes place in the basidium. It produces 4 basidiospores. Then the fruiting bodies are called as basidiocarps, and the example is agaricus, which is mushroom, Eustiliago, smut, Puccinia, rust. So how do you remember this? Bapu. B is for basidiomyces, basidiomyces, and rest are the examples. So you can remember this. Next is deuteriomyces. Commonly, this is known as imperfect fungi. So, Ascomycetes called sac fungi. This is known as imperfect fungi because only the asexual or vegetative phases of the fungi are known. The sexual stages of member of deuteromycetes were discovered. They were often moved to ascomycetes and basidiomycetes. The deuteromycetes reproduce only by the asexual spores known as conidia. So they don't have a sexual stage, then move to asco and basidio in case if they have. The mycelium is septate and branched. Only in phycomycete it is aseptate. Some members are saprophytes or parasites, while a large number of them are decomposers and also help in mineral cycle. Some examples are Alternaria, Coleotrichum, Trichoderma. So you can remember the active ACT. Deuteromycetes. Okay. Now fungi is done. Let's move on to the kingdom Plantae. You'll learn also in plant kingdom. Kingdom Plantae includes all eukaryotic chlorophyll containing organisms commonly known as plants. So bladderwort and Venus flytrap are example of insectivorous plants, and Cuscuta is a parasite. The plant cells have an eukaryotic structure with a prominent chloroplast, and cell wall is made up of cellulose. So this is important. Plantae includes algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms, which we will be learning in the next chapter. There are life cycle of plants has two distinct phases, that is diploid sporophytic and haploid gametophytic, which alternate each other. Hence this phenomenon is called alternation of generation. So you have to know diploid is sporophytic and haploid is gametophytic. Okay. Next, kingdom Animalia also we'll learn in the fourth chapter. So this is mainly of heterotrophic eukaryotic organisms that are multicellular, and their cells lacks the cell wall. They have only the cell membrane. They digest their food in an internal cavity and store food reserves as glycogen or fat. Their mode of nutrition is holozoic, that means ingestion of food. Next, the very important part of this chapter comes here, that is virus, viroids, prions and lichens. So this is not included in the five kingdom classification. The viruses are non-cellular organisms that are characterized by having the inert crystalline structure outside the living cell. So this is the definition of virus, and you have to know this diagram because this is very much important. They may ask you to label it. Once they infect a cell, they take over the machinery of the host cell to replicate themselves, killing the host. Virus means venom or poisonous fluid. You have to remember these names. Who gave what? So Dmitry Ivanovsky recognized certain microbes as casual organism of the mosaic disease of tobacco. So he gave this mosaic disease of tobacco. M.W. Bejernik, he demonstrated that the extract of the infected plants of the tobacco could cause infection in healthy plants and named the new pathogen virus. So he named the virus and called the fluid as Contagium vivum fluidum, which means infectious living fluid. So he named virus and he gave the fluid name. Ivanovsky, he uh, he recognized that there is some disease causing organisms. Next, W.M. Stanley showed that the virus could be crystalline and the crystals consist largely of proteins. He did this. And you have to know that viruses are obligate parasites. They are inert outside their specific host cell. In addition to proteins, viruses also contain genetic material. So you have to remember in which what is contained. For example, it can be either RNA or DNA, and no virus can contain both RNA or DNA. So viruses that infect plant infecting viruses have a single-stranded RNA, and that which infect animals either have a single-stranded or double-stranded RNA or double-stranded DNA. Bacterial viruses or bacteriophages have double-stranded DNA. The protein coat called capsid, made of small subunits called capsomeres, protect the nucleic acid. So these are arranged in the helical form. Virus causing diseases are like mumps, smallpox, herpes, influenza, and AIDS in human is also caused by virus. In plants, mosaic formation, leaf rolling and curling, yellowing and weed clearing, dwarfing and stunted growth is caused by virus. Next, coming to viroids. T.O. Diner discovered this, which is smaller than the viruses and caused this potato spindle tuber disease. How do you remember? T.O. O here, potato O here, viroids O here. So you can make it. And it lacked the protein code that is found in viruses, and it had free RNA and hence named it a viroid, and the RNA has low molecular weight. This is a PYQ. RNA has high or low molecular weight, it has low. Next, prions. This is newly added here. So prions are nothing but the abnormally folded protein. The most notable diseases caused by prions is bovine spongiform encephalopathy, commonly known as mad cow disease in cattle, and its analogous variant CR Jacob disease in humans. Next, lichens. Lichens is nothing but the association between algae and fungi. The algal is called phyco. Algal phyco, AP and FM. AP, FM. Fungal is called mycobacterium, which are autotrophic and heterotrophic respectively. Like this is important that lichens are very good pollution indicators. They do not grow in polluted areas. So this is also a PYQ. So this is all the important points of this chapter. So please like, share and subscribe so that you don't miss out any notification. Thank you all, and please wait for the next chapter.